Korean shamans tend to be one of the most powerful shamans I've encountered. I know that the ayahuasca shamans in Central and South America and the Amazon are quite powerful, and the medicine is very powerful. But the Koreans do not use any sacred plants to go to induce a altered state. The first time I was in my teacher's shrine room, she sat me down and she started playing her drums, and I was knocked down. I couldn't keep myself up. I fell over and went onto the floor because the energy was so powerful, and I didn't even know what hit me. It's a result of having an unbroken line of practice. When a tradition has been practicing this magic art for hundreds and thousands of years, it's going to have an effect.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Julie Ryan Show. It's where we blend spirituality and practicality to help you live a life of purpose and joy. We have Dr. Helena Soholm on this show with us today. Helena is a psychologist and Korean shaman who bridges ancient indigenous healing with modern psychological science. I'm eager to explore how Korean shamanism differs from other traditions, what unique healing methods she uses, the results she's seen, and what inspired her to unite two seemingly opposite worlds. Please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends. Now, let's go chat with Helena. Helena, welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled that you could join us today.
Thank you, Julie, for having me on.
Oh, my honor. Girl, you do soul and ancestral initiations through ceremony and ritual. Tell us what happens at those ceremonies, at those events, at those gatherings.
Yeah, so the ceremony work and the ritual work I do through my shamanic practice, and it is through my ancestry as a Korean woman and a Korean shaman. And it's a process I've been learning through spirit. Where can I start? Let's see. Those ceremonies, in the ceremonies, we have a tradition of using rhythm, music, dance to go into an altered state of consciousness. And then during those times, my spirits that I work with, uh, possess me. They come to me, and I'm embodying them. And I dance, I jump. It's very active process, and that's how I go into a trance state. And then those spirits offer healing to the people who are in the ceremony.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack. You didn't even talk for very long, but my brain's going, what's this? What's that? What's this? What's that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Spirits possess you. Say more about that. What's going on there?
Yeah, I know that it can be a frightening term, but let me give you an example of what started happening. So this gift, the shamanic gift, runs in my family through my maternal side. However, I was brought up very Protestant Christian, and at one point I had considered entering ministry and becoming a minister, ordained minister. But I just kind of shifted. I shifted the focus to working with different and more diverse, groups of people rather than just within the church. So my mother was a very Christian woman, and so she had repressed all her gifts, her psychic gifts, her shamanic gifts, but she was very powerful. So in my 30s, the gift really activated, although it was a part of me all of my life. I've had prophetic and dreams about people that I would know something about people before I really got to know them, or about events. So it's been a part of my life. But in my 30s, when I would sit to meditate, I would be visited by spirits. And although I had no specific training, I stayed calm. And as these spirits entered me, I can just feel them.
What's it
becoming
feel
a
like?
Well, the first spirit that appeared to me and took me through my initiation was a very masculine warrior spirit. And he was big. I can just feel his immense power and size. And when he came in, I can even feel my jawline shifting into a more masculine form. I would feel power that I couldn't really access on my own. And it felt big, and I felt like a warrior. And during my initiation ceremony, he was the one who really made himself known. And I danced with swords. And in my tradition, we jump up and down to go into an altar state. And I was doing this pretty much all day long. But even at the end of the day, he gave me so much power. It was unbelievable, Julie. I could have jumped for the next several days. I would have been okay. Except that the next day, when the ceremony was over, I was sore.
Well, I
Very,
was
very
gonna ask, how'd your body feel about all of that?
well. The next day, I suffered a bit, but during the process, it was like a endless supply of energy.
Does this warrior have a name?
He hasn't given me a name, but I just simply feel him, and I can see him in my mind's eye.
What's he look
And
like?
um, he's very powerful. He's big, but he's not enormous, and he's got a huge heart. Compassion and heart. A lot of my spirits are very heart centered spirits that help me come and do the work with compassion and empathy. And in fact, when some of these spirits who are much better than me and more evolved come through, they rub off, for the time being. And it helps me grow as a human being, providing more compassion for people that I might not have had in my human state. So they help me go beyond my human self as well. And the warrior is important for ancestral work because all of us have trauma, and we have generational and ancestral trauma. And in fact, I can make a good argument that the human story is one of trauma since we've been here on the planet. So the warrior, when he comes through with his big swords, cuts through all the generational trauma and the curses and the negativity that have occurred. And it's a very important spirit for the shaman because it clears up her ancestral line so she can be free of that and help others also with the same task.
All right, I wanna dive into that in detail here in a couple of minutes, but a couple more questions about your warrior spirit. When you said the warrior spirit that with whom you work is very heart-centered, that's not something that we normally think of with somebody who's a warrior. I think of, like, Attila the Hun and, the warriors, throughout history that were just,
Yes.
they were going in and winning battles at all costs, and heart was not
Mm.
part of the warrior equation in my mind. So it's interesting to me that you mentioned the heart-centered part. Can you say more about how that combines with the warrior mentality and the whole warrior archetype?
Yes, I can. I believe that warriors need the courageous heart to go into battle and situations where they have to fight. So often, I think people have a distorted notion of what fighting can be, fighting for the sake of conflict and harm. But as a society, we don't really talk about being courageous with a warrior's energy and heart to protect and to defend what is right. So I think what you're talking about is our distorted notion of what it means to fight well and fight for what is well, what is good in the world. So in this case, this warrior may have had a history, the spirit at one point of violence and harm. However, these spirits that I'm working with, they've had some time, and I don't know how long that time has been, but they have been on the other side, purifying themselves, and they have to get to a certain level of mastery themselves in order to become these guiding spirits for the shaman.
Well, and what's coming into my head too is the spiritual teachers really are a type of warrior. We think about Jesus and Buddha and St. Francis and, whomever.
Mhm.
And they all were coming from a heart-centered place, but they were still warriors because they were persecuted in a lot of instances. I mean, the Dalai Lama, for heaven's sakes, that, they're persecuted perhaps from a political
Mhm.
standpoint or sometimes even a geopolitical standpoint, but they're coming from a heart-centered place with their message, and they
Yes.
have to be warriors to continue on the path to deliver that message. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yes, absolutely. And it's one component of my work, and it has a place. However, it can't be the only tool that we use. So, in fact, the warrior, after my initiation, he took a back seat because he needed to come through and teach me about all the generational trauma that was in my being and my body. And then he took a back seat, and then other spirits arrived.
Well, the thing about the whole shamanism, and I'm wondering, what's a Korean shaman versus a Peruvian shaman versus a American Indian shaman? I let me just speak for myself. I think of shamanism as Central America, South America, indigenous cultures in the United States of America. And then when I was preparing for this conversation, I thought, well, duh. The whole Asian culture is all there's mysticism in there as well. Look at the samurais. They got their power from energy and from spirit and all of that. And
Mm.
the Chinese emperors. I have a dear friend who's a Taoist priest, and I've been in his temple, and oh my god, the energy in there, every time I'm there, I get an upgrade in my vibrational frequency. So,
Yeah.
say more about that. I think we here in America aren't as aware of the Eastern shamanism and the Eastern mysticism like we are the the America's mysticism and even the European mysticism.
So, shamanism is a phenomenon that's seen all over the world. But technically, the term comes from a Siberian word, but it is expressed in cultures all around the world. And if you're interested in this topic, a scholar by the name of Michael Winkelmann has several books talking about the different cultures that hold these types of people. And there are some similarities across the globe, but there are some distinct, features that are not seen in every culture. So the Korean culture, I'm excited to share this because we have a very lively shamanic culture, and it's been in place since the Korean people have populated the Korean peninsula, north and south. Our people come from Siberia and Mongolia. Okay, that's where we're from. We're not indigenous to the peninsula. However, we're from those regions. And so we have shared cultural practices and traditions in those regions. So some of the costumes that I wear actually look very similar to Mongolian shamans' costumes. But the really fun part of our tradition is that most of the shamans in my country are women.
It's interesting that you talk about masculine and feminine spirits
Mm.
because it's been my experience that all spirits are just energy. They're just
Oh.
pure love,
Mhm.
and they present themselves as masculine or feminine to help us from a human
Mm.
perspective how to
Mhm.
have a better frame of reference with
Yeah.
the whole concept of being able to communicate with them. And
Mhm.
oftentimes they will give us a name that's masculine or feminine, and they're fine. They don't care what we call them. I
Mhm.
find that with angels too, that
Mm.
angels when I first started doing this work, Helena, they would give me this name that was like 15 letters and it was all consonants. And I'd say, how the heck am I supposed to pronounce that? And so I thought it's either a dead language or it's
Mm.
who knows what.
Mm.
It's a language from another galaxy far, far away or something.
Mhm.
And I said, "Can you just give me an American English name that's easy to pronounce and spell?" And so now they come in with Anne or Marie
Mm.
or
Oh,
Sam
interesting.
or things like that, and I've heard from them many times. They don't care what we call them, but it's interesting. I pick up on that too when I
Mhm.
think of a spirit and I think, "Okay, this is a woman's
Mm.
spirit," but I
Mhm.
know
Mhm.
that it's all pure energy. Like, we
Yes.
live many lifetimes, and we live as men, and we live as women,
Mhm.
but it's all still our spirit, which is just pure energy. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it absolutely makes. It is energy. They're taking form probably for our sake more than anything else. Um, Let me give you an example of this. Something that again, I can never be completely sure about many of these things. I do like to leave a great mystery as a mystery and leave a question mark because there are a lot of things I still don't understand. One of the first things that was happening when I was going through my initiation period is that my maternal grandmother started showing up in my dreams, and she had already passed. And she was the very Christian woman. In fact, she was the one who converted everybody in the family to Christianity, actually. And she started showing up and teaching me in a very concrete way, like do this, do that, meet with this person. And she had a different energy than what I remembered her by. This presence in my dreams, who visited me, was a lot calmer and very spiritually evolved spirit. So I wonder if that spirit that I was seeing was kind of a culmination of all the spirits showing herself in a way that I'm familiar with, maybe to help me along and to feel connected. But you're absolutely right. The energy is the more essential part of this, to tune into the energy rather than get focused on the outer shell that we might be maybe projecting.
Well, it makes it more comfortable for us
Mhm.
to
Yes.
communicate, and my favorite movie that illustrates this is Contact with Jodie Foster,
Yeah.
and she's on another planet,
Yeah.
and the alien shows up looking like her father,
Yes.
so
Absolutely.
that they didn't want her to be alarmed by seeing, somebody that was green with big eyes or something or what she was expecting, and I think that's a great portrayal of how spirit works too. I'm fascinated by you said that your heritage on your maternal line had other shamans in it, and did you know that before this happened? Number 1, I wanna hear about that, and number 2, tell us about your initiation. What happened? What these spirits started coming to you during awake hours or just when you were dreaming, or what was that all about?
Yeah, they're coming at all hours.
Oh my goodness.
So my mother knew she had gifts in this area, and I think deep down. So my mother passed away in 2020, and she's working with me very closely now. And she knew who she was, but it was all within the Christian tradition. And I think it's beautiful. She interpreted many of the experiences that she had within the Christian context, and I was brought up um, very deeply entrenched in this tradition. And that's how I became a spiritual person through the church. I was very active in the church ever since I was a child. And I loved going to church because that's where I made contact with God and spirits. Now, I don't believe the same way that I did as a child. So she knew, but she also had a deep fear that I was going to turn into a shaman. And one can argue that her biggest fear for me was that I was going to become a shaman. And she was alive when I did. And she was heartbroken about that because it clashed so very much with her religious beliefs. And I have been
How?
caught up.
How how did it clash with the religious beliefs?
And so, if you're familiar with more of the traditional Christian faith, shamans actually in those churches are seen. I hate to even say it as the person who does the devil's work. This is the kind of perception that is out there, and I'm sad about that. And even though we have many, many shamans in South Korea working today, Julie, a lot of them are marginalized and severely stigmatized. This is a result of many different factors in the culture. So the shamans don't have a good standing in society. And this is the part she was also afraid of. Because she was a single mother, immigrant to the United States. We came when I was 9 years old, and my younger brother. And she worked hard. She didn't have a lot of resources, and she worked hard to raise us. And I did everything I can to gain that status in a worldly way by all my academic achievements. And then she thought I was throwing everything away.
Well, and the interesting thing about Christianity and other religions is over the years, it's become about control. You've got to come through us. You've got to do it this way.
Yes.
And I don't know if you're aware of this or not, Helena, but Pope Francis in 2016 issued a papal bull. Are you
Mm-hmm.
familiar with this? Which is kind of
Um,
like a newsletter to his
yes, yes.
pastors
Mm-hmm.
around the world. And he urged them to welcome healers and psychics because they were doing the work of the Holy Spirit. And I have that link. I can send it to you if you
Yes.
want.
Oh, wow.
And people are really surprised when they hear that. But if you go back in all of the cultures, this has been prevalent since the beginning of time. And then the organized religions have started to not started to, they started a couple millennia ago, right? To say, "Okay, no, that you gotta come through
Yeah.
us.
Wow.
You gotta come through the pastor, you gotta come through the
Mm-hmm.
priest, you gotta come through whoever to reach God and reach spirit," and that's
Yes.
nonsense.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Absolutely. I loved Pope Francis. I loved his energy. I knew that it was coming from love. And that's the most important thing that um, people in positions of power, such as his, that we come from that place of compassion and love to heal our world. And Julie, this is the reason why I took that path out of ministry and Christianity. It's not that I reject it now, it's a part of my history, and I love the teachings of Jesus and the New Testament. However, I wanted to reach more people, and because I think many of us come back now to earth to do the work to heal. And so I take it very seriously in terms of my mission here on earth. And it's my soul mission to help people realize the divine um, in everyday life, not just through an institution. Although, if you want to keep an institution as a part of your practice, of course, it's a lovely thing. You can build community. It's a support network. All the beautiful things that religious institutions can provide. But I like direct access to the divine. And that's what I'm here to teach people how to do.
right, right. Back to the ceremony thing before we move completely away from that. Do you find that people really resonate with that, especially those of us that are so ensconced in the technology that's available to us today, where they really can participate in a ceremony without using their phones? And
Oh, yeah, it's
and
not allowed in my ceremony.
right, and what do they witness? What do they experience in that that helps them really balance modern day technology with that ancient wisdom and the ancient ceremonial practices that really have been lost for the most
Yes,
part?
yes. So, let's see, the ceremonies are very special, and this is one of my passion areas to bring ceremony back to modern existence because all human beings in our history have gathered in circles, drumming, singing, dancing, and inviting spirits to come and heal us and help us have a more meaningful life. And whenever I do any kind of a talk to a group of people, I ask people in the group, when was the last time they gathered in such a circle in a ceremonial setting? And if depending on the audience, there are very few hands that go up.
If they've ever even participated, what I'm thinking is the closest thing that I can think of in our modern day society is Ring Around the Rosie with children.
Yes, children
Re
know how to do this.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And, in certain church contexts and religious contexts, yes, if you're a part of a community, they sometimes go into that ecstatic state, then they understand. However, it's rare. So even in South Korea, where shamanism is a part of the culture, deeply a part of their tradition, modern day secular Koreans don't engage in ceremony. If they do, they're hiding it. They're not talking about it. So the ceremony, my intention is not just for me to go in altar state and help people. I like to teach people how to go into that state themselves because I believe we can all do that with practice. And the more that you practice going into those states, I believe it can help us achieve calm, relaxation, stress reduction. And part of it is connecting with your community. We're so alienated from each other. So I work also internationally and globally because I like to bring groups of people together. We all have wounding from our history as different groups of people, and my spirits and I are working to bring different groups with different ancestries connecting together and learning how to heal ourselves. So, in the this is a slight, deviation even from my own tradition. The folk tradition itself is not necessarily concerned so much with personal healing. It's more about how to have a good life and keep your ancestors happy and healthy. But because of my training in psychology, I've created a kind of a different model of using the folk tradition of Korea, but bringing it into the modern, world.
So it's a hybrid,
Yes,
basically.
yes.
It's a hybrid. Well, and it the thing that I'm finding so interesting about this is I've never heard about Korean traditions with the shamanism thing. And this is why I wanted to have you on because it's completely a new concept to me. And then when I started looking into what the work that you were doing and you got all that alphabet soup at the end of your name with the doctorate, with the PhD. And so that gives you instant credibility in a lot of people's minds. And then you combine it with this ancient practice with the ceremonies and the whole 9 yards that it's fascinating to me to merge the 2 together, and my whole goal with this show is to combine spirituality and practicality to help us live a life of purpose and joy, and you're doing the same thing with the old traditions and bringing it into the new. Well, as I've mentioned, I'm not as familiar with the Korean shamanism, but I have more knowledge about the American and the South American and the Central American shamanism. And a lot of them use plant medicines to induce these hallucinogenic states. I'm
Mhm.
using air quotes. Do the Korean shamanism traditions do the same?
They do not. So, Julia, I have found, and this is not just from my bias of being a Korean, that Korean shamans tend to be one of the most powerful shamans I've encountered in my life. I know that the ayahuasca shamans in Central and South America and the Amazon are quite powerful, and the medicine is very powerful. I've had experiences with it, and it helped me in my own shamanic path. But the Koreans do not use any sacred plants to go to induce altered states. The first time I was in my teacher's shrine room, she sat me down and she started playing her drums, and I was knocked down. I couldn't keep myself up. I fell over and went on to the floor because the energy was so powerful and I didn't even know what hit me. And that's just from drumming and being in the space. And I've seen also shamanic ceremonies and in my own ceremonies um, where the energy is just boom as soon as you call. And this is not to brag about my tradition necessarily, although I'm very proud. It's a result of having an unbroken line of practice. It's like when somebody is a beginner, they're just not going to be as potent or as effective. But it's that unbroken line of shamans that all the way goes back to our origins. And who knows who were the original crop of these shamans. But when a tradition has been practicing this magic art for hundreds and thousands of years, it's going to have an effect. So this is why I believe that even in countries or cultures where the practices have been broken, we can start now and build that into the future generations and give them because we need it. These are the practices that are going to help us solve the big global issues. The leaders of countries around the world who have the most power need to pay attention to magic practices into the future in solving the everyday practical issues for humans. So this is where my mind is in terms of training others so that they learn to access that information. And then let's create that energy now so that we can solve the big problems.
I teach the same thing. It's instant. You instantly are in the vibration of
Yes.
spirit. Get in
Yes.
and out of it instantly. You do not need to meditate for 4 hours and twirl 3 times and jump
Mm.
on your left foot and raise your
No.
right hand. Same thing that you're doing. Furthermore, we had a medical doctor, Neil Nathan, on the show, and he, early in his career, was working on a Native American reservation, on an Indian reservation, and
Hmm.
he was the critical care supervisor. He was over the
Yes.
CCU
Yes.
there, or the ICU, probably the ICU, and he had a patient who was a Native American that was dying, and I believe he had sepsis, and he told the story. He said, "We used all of our tricks in our medical bag, and this guy was, you know, he was dying, and we didn't know what to do." And he said one of the elders from the tribe came in and said, "Can we do a drumming ceremony in the room?" And Dr. Nathan said, "Sure." He thought, "What the heck?" I mean, "I'll take whatever we can get that's gonna work." And he said they drummed constantly for 3 days straight. They would take breaks, but somebody would come in
Yes.
and continue the drumming, so there was no interruption in the frequency of the
Yes.
drumming over
Yes.
3 days, over 72 hours. He said at the end of the 3rd day, the patient got up and walked out of the hospital completely cured, and he said that was his first initiation into vibrational medicine, and he thought, "Okay, there is something big going on here," and it's ancient. And so many, if not all cultures have it. You said that when we first started this conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is critical. It's not just a hobby anymore for people. It never was. It was real life practical skills. It should be a part of our everyday life. It has been in the past and it should be again.
Mhm. Fascinating. Back to when you're in a what do you call it? In a trance or in a do you know what's going on? Are you cognizant of what's happening? Do you lose consciousness from a human perspective and spirits just talking or acting through you? How much are you aware
Mm-hmm.
of what's happening?
So I'm aware there's a part of my mind that's still there. So funny thing about that during the initiation ceremony, uh, the blessing that I have is through my tradition. So I know that many people living today have these gifts, and we call them by many different names. However, having a culture that you can fall back on, I think is helpful. So I'm immensely grateful, and I believe that I chose this body and self to incarnate into so that I can utilize the tradition. Otherwise, I find it very difficult. I have a lot of people I work with who are from a culture where these ancient practices have been cut off. So then to access it is difficult. So I realize the difficulty for many people who may have the natural gift, However, they don't know how to utilize it within the tradition. So I was lucky to have the tradition. And during the ceremony, there's a very structured way that shamans are initiated. And it's a wonderful way to teach the new shaman how to go into that state. So during the ceremony, I am a Westerner. Okay, Julie, I was brought up in the US. This is fairly new to me. This is 2018. And the teacher that I found, she works internationally. So I found her when she came to America. And she and a team of her sister shamans initiated me. You can never do this work on your own. It's too difficult. There's too many things that have to take place in the ceremony. So it's a community oriented practice. So they gave me my fan and bells, which are the tools that a shaman uses. And they said, okay, and I have all this regalia on.
What's it look like? What's your outfit look like? Is it some kind of vestments or something like a
Um,
priest would wear kind of a thing?
Actually, yes, they're kind of cool. They're robes, and there's different robes for different spirits, and they're beautiful. So the tradition also utilizes art and like a theatrical aspect to it. And there's lots of different colors, so it's just beautiful aesthetically as well, which I appreciate. So I'm wearing all these traditional garb. It's heavy, it's long, hot, and then they gave me these things to hold, fan and bells, and then these are metal bells, and people can look up on my website. I have some photos of these things, and they're like, okay, when the drumming music begins, you start jumping.
Just
Like,
vertical jump? Just jump up
yes,
and down
yeah.
like what kinda were you barefoot or did you have shoes on?
No shoes. It was just socks that are for my traditional dress. And I'm jumping and jumping hour, 2, 3. I don't know. I've lost track of time. I don't know. I'm sweating. I'm just like in my brain because my brain is there. Like, okay, this is weird. This is weird. And what the heck am I doing here? What is this? All these thoughts are going through my mind. I'm like, I have a pretty good life back home in the United States. I have a good psychotherapy practice. I do well. I have a husband who loves me and supports me. I should just give this up and go home. Those are the thoughts running through my left brain.
So you're in where are you in Korea when this is
Yes,
happening? Are you
yes.
in Seoul or are you in, like,
No, it's
out in the
uh,
country or
out in the country near the mountains. It's a mountainous country, and we have spirits that are nature based, and we're in the countryside. And I'm like, I can't disappoint all these people. They're all here to help me.
are you outside or inside? Are you in a building? Is it just these shamans that are initiating you, or are there other people there as well?
It's the shamans, and we have few people who are invited to come and witness. And sometimes the ceremonies are open to the village in the traditional way, not so much anymore. And because the shamanic tradition is so active in South Korea, there are these properties where shamans can go and rent the space. They're usually near nature or mountains. So I'm inside of a building partially. Some of it takes place outside, and I was about to give up, and then boom, something hit. I just felt the hit, and the spirits were active, and then I just wanted to jump forever and ever. So my mind is still there, Julie, but when I go into a deeper trance, then it recedes to the back a little bit, and then a whole nother kind of a brain activity is happening, and I would love to be hooked up to machines one day while I'm doing this to see what
Yeah,
the heck is happening,
yeah.
because I find it fascinating because my scientific mind is always present, and I'm curious about what's happening. So in the deeper state, um, I have images, feelings, lots of emotions. So if I'm with somebody whose ancestor needs attention, they will come through, and I'm embodying this ancestor who needs the help and support. And there's a catharsis that happens with whatever unfinished business that they may have. And then some of the spirits, when they come through, I have the masculine warrior. I have a monk spirit who's trying to make me into a vegetarian. And then I have my main spirit that I work with now is kind of a mother, the great mother spirit who came through the bear woman. She's the mother of the Korean nation, and she's the one leading these days. And she is a mother of compassion. So lots of people needing a mother's big hug these days. So all these different spirits are active. And recently in my ceremony in Denmark, where my husband is from, that's why I go back to Denmark frequently. And last year when I did a ceremony there, they had a group of Korean adoptees. So these were people who've been adopted from Korea, from Korea to Denmark. And we did an ancestral ceremony there. I started having a phenomenon that is known as speaking in tongue.
Yeah.
It didn't happen prior to that, but it happened at that ceremony. And I also had indigenous people at the ceremony. I saw my friends are Inuit in Denmark. They have Inuit people because of Greenland, and Denmark colonized Greenland. So I've been connecting with the indigenous people who were also at the ceremony, and some of their ancestral spirits were active as well. So all this is happening, but although I remember, sometimes I forget the details because I'm in a different state. So sometimes there's a recording, either video or audio, and when I go back and listen, I think, "Oh my god, I don't remember that."
Mhm. Interesting. When you are in the ceremony and spirit has possessed you, for lack of a
Mhm,
better
mhm,
word, I'm
mhm.
using air quotes for those of
Yes.
you that are just listening, and you said you could feel them when they came in. Can you describe what you felt, first of all? And secondly, how do you know the ceremony's over? Is it when they leave, or are you on a time clock, or what happens there?
Well, so it's a lot of physiological symptoms, tingling, shaking. It's a embodied experience, truly. I know they're there, and even now, if I'm just sitting during my day working or doing something, I can feel certain physical sensations that come through. And that was happening in the early stages when I was making contact with these spirits. Would feel tingling on the top of my head, down to the back. And there were a lot of physical symptoms, heat coming in and out. It was,
I bet you lose weight in those ceremonies. You probably dropped 10 pounds.
well, you jump a lot, and it's good for me. I suppose I will age well this way. And so it's a lot of movement. It works through the body. The body's a carrier, and I have to pay attention to make interpretations of what's happening, and then knowing what they're saying, seeing images, interpreting. So it took practice, and I'm still learning. I'm not in any stage where I think that I'm an expert by now. But what I do tell my participants and clients that I work with, I'm doing my best. And when I know better, I will do better. But at this point, this is what I know. And my motto is let's learn together. And I love it when my participants, who are even more talented than me in these areas, um, have experiences themselves. And then we share. And now that gets interesting when you're having an experience, maybe you haven't shared. And then the participant also sees similar images or experiences. Then you have something. So I love sharing. I always leave room for that because we learn from each other. Because you may be getting an image from me. And I've had a lot of people in ceremonies tell me they see my mother. I'm like, good. She's here helping now, you know? So, and I may not be seeing her or tapping into her. So it's a group activity.
Right. I find the same in my trainings
Mm,
and we do that in the practicum section of my trainings, and we have many of those sessions where we're all comparing notes of what we're getting from spirit. Let's
yes.
change directions for a minute.
Hmm.
What's an indigenous mind, and do we all have one?
Hmm. Yes. So when I use that term in this way, I don't mean description of peoples who are part of a certain land. But I use it generally to describe the way human beings used to live when we were in hunter-gatherer lifestyle. And that was bulk of our evolution history. People forget we haven't been in this kind of modern existence for very long. We have lived longer in that hunter-gatherer mode, and so we are not living that lifestyle for many people living in urban areas. However, our brains are still in that state. And that's when we used to alter our consciousness for healing, but also more for everyday life. There may be people in the tribe who are perhaps more gifted, so they're receiving information that other members of the tribe don't have, and it would help us evolve in everyday affairs, from finding food sources to conflict resolution in the group. So this is a integrated way that our brain is used to being, and it's also an honoring of the realms that we don't know about. That's the saddest thing for me. So one thing I had when I was growing up in South Korea, because it's a shamanistic culture, is that they encouraged speaking about dreams. That was the big one. So a lot of members of my family, when we wake up and gather for holidays or something, if somebody had a dream about an ancestor or something, we all take it seriously. So sometimes when I wake up from a dream and, I don't think, oh, this is dream content. This is real for me. So when I see something or when I get a message, I'm acting on it without question, because I know now. It's a knowing that it's an important thing that's been given to me. So it's an engagement with the spirit world in a way where we don't dismiss that information.
What part do ancestors play in our past lives?
Hmm.
Number
Yeah.
one. And number two, do we all have past lives?
So, Julie, this is an area that I'm very passionate about. I'm so excited to talk about this because I believe I am developing kind of a knowing or a theory. I'm not a researcher. I have research training and I like to absorb research. I believe that we're some kind of a consciousness, awareness, and we can call it a soul. I don't know exactly what we are, and I don't know our origins. That I have no idea about. I can make guesses on my origins, but I don't know.
You don't
Some
think it
people.
comes from an ape?
And I don't know some of these things, but I know that we're some kind of awareness coming into being through this body, at least on this planet. Okay. And I believe that we choose this body and the life plan. Now, how do I know this? Well, for people who need that research, I keep track of all the near death experience research that's happening now. There are many researchers, and you could just go on YouTube and listen to podcasts about people sharing their stories. Pim Van Lommel is one person who's written many topics, and Ryan Moody, of course, wrote one of the first books on this topic. So people can go there. And then the other side is people like Jim Tucker at University of Virginia, who's done research on children reporting past lives. You have to do something with the evidence. Even if you're skeptic, you have to still take in the evidence and learn about it. And then the life path. So the soul comes in, but this is the part that I'm excited about. Why did I choose this body? Well, I believe we choose a certain body that has gifts that are attached to the body. So the genetic transmission from one generation to the next of certain gifts and talents. And of course, that's where all the trauma is there as well. So then as I come into this body, my job is to fully recognize the gifts and the talents within the family line, ancestral line, and also heal the ancestral line. And I started thinking, if everybody comes into an incarnation, makes that life to its fullest by healing the line and also bringing the gift forward, then I think our job is done. The earth will be healed. So it's not a small thing to take this healing seriously. So we have our individual, I believe, soul that may not have anything to do with our families and physical ancestry. So there are two strains of thought here. One is that I'm a soul with my own past incarnations that make me who I am. And then in this life, I took on a body that holds a certain memory from this physical ancestry. So those are two separate things. Although karma will often bring you back into a family and people around you will be entangled with you through your past incarnations and karma. But those are separate. So when I leave this body as Helena in this life, I may be a completely different human being in the next life with a different history in terms of physically, biologically.
Fascinating. Do you see a correlation or a significance to how many lives a person has lived? Like, do you see if somebody's lived 837 lives versus somebody who's lived 137 lives, do you find that there's a difference in how they're experiencing this lifetime?
Hmm. The short answer is I don't know. However, this is the other piece of my work. I offer past life regression, not a reading. I don't read Akashic records, although often I will get information about a piece of that soul that's then repeated over lifetimes that's unhealthy. Because of my line of work, I'm going to go to the areas that are not working for people, or sometimes the gifts of a person. So sometimes I get information about their extraordinary gifts or the problematic or unhealthy patterns. But I don't know how many lives I have recovered for myself, Julie, through dream work, actually. A handful of lives I was shown in my own dreams, and those also take on a certain quality if you know how to read them. They will usually show up as like a film where you're watching a scene, and if you do dream work, you can know something about your own past lives. So I do the past life work in that way to help relieve unhealthy patterns and symptoms that people have carried over that may be causing some distress in this life. But in terms of lives, I don't know. I only know a handful of my lives, and the oldest one that I have recovered was as a man. I was a man during pre-Columbian era in Central or South America, and that was fascinating when I saw that.
Were you a shaman in that lifetime?
I was not. I was just the ordinary man, and I was a part of a family that were merchants and had a kind of a business selling pottery or things, everyday home items. I was actually, I don't know of any lives where I was a shaman. I had very ordinary lives where I didn't do very well in many of the lives.
Oh, we could find lots of lives, I'm sure, when you were a shaman. I'll help you with that. How do people recognize when their spiritual gifts are really awakening? And what can they do to help propel that and keep from feeling overwhelmed?
I think um, that listening is the key. So I send my clients out to go on retreats, either on their own, to just rent a cabin in nature where we want to bring all the external stimuli down and away from your everyday scene so you can relax and just focus. And it doesn't have to be some kind of a strenuous, disciplined meditation practice. Not all the time, at least. Where because I believe that these things occur when you're more relaxed and actually not thinking in a certain way. So retreats, going away, doing your own kind of a vision quest, vision quest in a very general term, not in the specific um, indigenous practices, but go out and find yourself, and then you can take on some of these practices daily in meditation or prayer, to keep your mind that way. Often, a lot of clients will say, "Oh, Helena, I hate to report, I haven't been spiritual very much. I need to do my spirituality." And I continue to remind people that you are a spiritual being. You cannot not be spiritual. Um, Even when you're doing the most profane thing of just eating your ordinary lunch, not even an exciting one, you are being a spiritual person. You're always, and everything that you do can become spiritual. So to not have that dualistic mindset of now I'm spiritual, I'm doing chanting, I'm doing this, I'm serious, and then I'm at the movie just eating my popcorn. That can be a spiritual act too, because you could be having fun or connecting with your loved ones and having a great time. That's a wonderful spiritual practice. So to take away the dualistic thinking of spiritual, not spiritual, then you've already grown one step further to becoming who you are at the core.
Right. I love that. You're always a spiritual person no matter what you're doing. Oh, that's
Yes.
perfect. I love that. Last question, why do we incarnate?
Hmm. Actually, I have this question too. I want to ask this question to others. I don't know. That's at the core. I can make conjectures. I don't know why I came back into this body. I know that I had unfinished business and I have lessons to learn. But for ordinary people incarnating, the Buddhist masters will say you have karma. You're not finished because you left behind energy that needs attention. So you learn and grow, and you have to finish what you needed to do. And then, of course, there's the masters, some of them choosing to come back, already enlightened, but they come back into the circle of life to help others. I'm not even close to that. I'm just trying to learn more about myself. Maybe I'll answer that question at the end of my life. You can check in with me, but I don't know. I have a lot of I don't knows, but I know that I have some kind of a goal and mission and unfinished business for sure. Things I did in the past that might have harmed others, and I need to make those right.
Well, you're obviously being led in your life to a multitude of different paths that you're embracing. You are fascinating, my girl. My goodness, I have learned a lot, and I know
Um,
everybody listening and watching will have learned a lot from listening to you, and I'm in awe of how you've joined the shamanism and the psychologists together, and it makes total sense how you're utilizing skill sets from both, and one you chose, and it seems to me that the shamanism part chose you, is the difference there.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
certainly a surprise.
right, right. So, kudos to you. I think you're doing some extraordinary work, and I know you're helping an awful lot of people around the world, so congratulations on that.
Oh,
Thank you for your
yeah.
service, quite frankly, for helping people. How can one learn more about you and your work?
So my website holds a lot of information, just my name, helenasoholm.com. And I have events there that I lead and how to access services that I provide. And then I use social media, Instagram, if you want to make contact there. It's a creative process for me to post about some of the work that I'm doing. So, yes, a lot of different ways of accessing me online. Uh,
And they can get you through your website
yes,
to all
absolutely.
of that.
Yes.
All righty, everybody. You got lots to think about with this conversation. Sending you so much love from Sweet Home, Alabama. Mwah! And
Thank you
from
so much.
Washington, too, where Helena is. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. To enhance your spiritual journey, click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends.